Hey, Wid fam, this is Leo with One Happy Widow. As you can see, it's not a live today. It's not lunch with Leo. It is lunch with Leo. It's just not live, so there's no chat. I my schedule has been a little challenging for me to try to make it on certain days at certain times. But I missed last week, I missed 2 weeks ago, and I don't want to start making this a habit. And so, since I was here and able to make this recording, I wanted to just go ahead and get on camera and do that. So, I'm going to make a recording today and then I'm going to post it, hopefully in time to have it to publish at noon today so that anyone who's looking can at least watch the video. I've got my notes over here on the side, so if you see me keep looking over, just so that I won't lose my place. But so today's topic, and I've been struggling lately, to come up with new topics every single week because I am, 7 years out, 8 years out almost, and, grief just doesn't affect my life in the same way that it used to. I'm not going to say it doesn't affect my life because it does. Being widowed definitely still affects my life on a daily. And I'll give you an example of that in just a few minutes about how it's really hit home for me this past week about my widowed status and things like that. But it doesn't present the same type of acute challenges for me now as it did in the beginning. So if you can equate it to going to the beach and looking out into the ocean, right? When you first step into the water on the beach, the waves can be pretty strong and pretty volatile, right? Right up close to the beach is where the waves are. It's where they start to crest, right? And it's where they could be the most violent. It doesn't mean that they're any more or less dangerous, but it's pretty volatile when you first get into the water and you're getting tossed around by these waves. Well, the farther you go out into the ocean, the more the waves, they're still there, but they're more underneath the surface. And so they kind of look more like undulating, like this, rather than breaking and tossing and turning and frothing and all that stuff, right? So the waves are definitely still there. If you were out in the middle of the ocean, you would still feel yourself being affected by those waves. And sometimes storms come even in the middle of the ocean. And sometimes instead of it just being those, low waves, sometimes they're still frothing and tossing and turning even out in the middle of the ocean. It's just not constantly. But if you look towards the beach, every wave that comes in is crashing and cresting and turning kids over and turning old ladies over and knocking people down, even when it's only ankle high, right? So that's kind of how grief is the way that I see it is in the beginning. It's, it's just so turbulent. It's turning your whole life upside down daily, minute by minute. And then over time, it's not really that the grief it's not really that it goes away. I wouldn't even say that it gets easier. I just think that we get stronger. We get more, we learn more coping skills. So we are more able to live with the grief. We're more able to handle the grief. And so I just think over time, we just get better at dealing with it. And so I think that's maybe where I am now. And so for that reason, it's really hard for me to come up with new, fresh topics of different things to talk about every single week. So if anybody has ideas, or anything you'd like for me to discuss or talk about, I'm happy to do that. I have covered most topics that I can think of over the past 4 years of this channel, but some people might not want to go back 100 videos and 4 years ago and watch a video on a certain topic. So I might revisit some of the original topics that I've talked about and maybe visit them from a different perspective than I did when I was only 3 or 4 years out versus now that I'm 7 or 8 years out and the memories aren't as fresh and things like that. So, and also, I haven't decided yet, but I don't know if I'm going to continue to come in weekly to do videos. I know that's best for the algorithm and it's the best to help people find the channel, but I just don't know if, I don't want to get repetitive and boring. And so I feel like everything that I have to say is out there on my videos already. So I'm not really sure if continuing to make videos on a weekly basis is still helpful to people. So give me some feedback. I don't know. Maybe I'm just doubting myself at this point and just not feeling it. But I had a rough week, just to be honest with you. And some of it had to do with, my widowed status, I think. So I'll talk about those details in a moment. But for today, what I want to talk about is the challenges of a long-term widow versus being in fresh grief. And I know a lot of people who find this channel are in fresh grief, and so they don't, maybe they're not interested in hearing about what it's going to be like way down the road because they can't even see, if they can make it through to the end of the day. But perhaps there are people out there who are, still trying to handle the grief and the widowhood even several years out, and maybe just need to hear that perspective from someone else who's also going through those similar issues, right? So I don't think I need these earbuds. I think it makes me talk louder. All right. I can't hear myself in there anyway. It's just mumbling things out. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the lingering waves of grief. And I've kind of already talked about that, but even if you're in the middle of the ocean and you've been swimming for a long time, you're still going to feel some of those waves. And honestly, some of those waves, even though they might not look volatile on the top, some of them way, way underneath can be some of the strongest, strongest ones and hardest ones for you to outswim, honestly, because they are so deep and they are so vast. They don't look intimidating, but they are, especially underneath the surface. So, and like I said, grief doesn't go away. Like, you don't ever get over it. It just kind of evolves over time, like we do. We evolve over time, and we start to get used to living life without our spouse. And that's a really sad reality to think about. Like, it's hard to even hear somebody talk about that, because that's a necessary part of healing. It's a necessary part of moving forward in life. But it's not something that we really want to do. It's something we do because we have no other choice, and we have to. But it's not a choice that we made. Like, we didn't choose to be widowed, right? But we are, and so we still have to deal with the cards that we've been dealt for this game. Also, as we go through, like we just went through a series of holidays, it's always tough during the holiday season. You've got back-to-back holidays, and sometimes you have other milestones that are kind of mixed in, and it's hard to know from year to year, how am I going to get through it this year? How is it going to affect me? Because you never quite know. Some years I think that we think it's just going to really knock us down, and it really doesn't affect us as much as we thought. And then other times we think, okay, I've been through this a few times and I think I got this licked. And then next thing you know, you're being hit out of left field by some memory or some trigger or something that comes up and just sort of takes your breath away, like a punch in the gut, right? And so sometimes even years later, those things can trigger grief spells, or harsh emotions or crying spells. I have found that over time, the things that trigger me, they don't trigger me as often. So there's longer time in between those triggers. But also when I do get triggered, it doesn't last as long, and it doesn't feel as acute as it did in the beginning. So it'll hit me, but it might not knock me down into a crying spell for 20 minutes. It might just hit me and make me have to sit down for a minute and just have a moment to myself and maybe go over a few memories and maybe shed a few tears and then wipe them away and then kind of get up and keep on moving through the day. So, and I'm not saying that's always how it happens, but that seems to be, how it just kind of levels out or mellows out. And then sometimes, even years later, you can really get hit by the reality of how your life has truly changed in the time since your husband or your wife passed away. And so, like I said, I will use that in a minute to talk about how it kind of hit me this week. And then sometimes, it hits us a little harder than we expected because it's been so long, and we're like, wow, where did that come from? And so it can be a little bit surprising because we weren't really expecting it to hit us as hard as it did. And then when it does, we're kind of like, well, how are we supposed to deal with this one? Am I having a setback, or is this just a momentary glitch, or, am I fixing to go through like another roller coaster of a down valley of grief again? Or, is this the start of something bigger, or what? As time goes by, our identity changes. In the very beginning, it feels like being a widow is our main identity. And so over time, most people don't really want to have that as our main identity. Like, I'm still widowed, but I don't want to be a widow who's living this life and trying to figure out how to navigate it. I want to be a woman who's figuring out life and how to navigate it, who happens to be a wife and a daughter and a mother and a widow and a sister and a friend and a teacher and a helper. I have all these labels, and but I don't want widow to be like my main, hello, I'm Leo, I'm a widow, and just wear that on my chest all the time. Like, that's not really how I want to portray myself, and that's not really how I want other people to see me as like the first thing that they think about when they see me. And so I'm creating this other set of identities for myself, and sometimes it's hard because sometimes you feel guilty because you haven't thought about the fact that you're a widow, or you haven't thought about your late spouse in a while. And so, or maybe you're doing some things that are truly making you feel happy and fulfilled and feel like you're getting joy out of life. Then you think about, but I'm doing this without my husband, or I'm doing this in spite of being a widow. And so sometimes we have to stop a moment and try to handle the grief. That there's always grief that comes along with making progress and steps forward in our healing process. And so it's kind of like a tug of war constantly. You move a little bit forward and you get set back a little bit from the grief and the guilt and the feelings of what are you doing, and the self-talk sometimes that we can subject ourselves to. Let me access my notes. So sometimes we have to figure out what our new purpose is in life. And that's a hard thing to accept too, because, you might have had dreams with your spouse of doing certain things. Like, I know some people have talked about, well, we were just going to retire and then we're going to sell all of our belongings and move and like buy an RV and just hit the road and just travel the country and just stop at RV parks and just live, the RV life. And then your husband dies. So then you have to decide, do I still want to quit my, retire and sell my house and buy an RV and hit the road and live the RV life by myself? Is that something I still want to do? Because it might not be. Your goals that you have for yourself might not be the same as the goals that you would have had if you were making plans for your life with your spouse. And sometimes there's guilt along with leaving those goals behind. Some people think, well, this was our plan, so should I go ahead with it? Should I continue on this path with this plan that I had with him, even though he's not here, in order to honor him? And to me, the answer is, that depends on yourself. But in my opinion, the answer is no, unless it's something that you truly still want to do on your own. If it's still something that you want to do and you're like, well, whether he's here or not, or whether she's here or not, this is something that I've always wanted to do and I still have a desire to do it for various reasons, but also for yourself. Don't do it just because you're honoring their memory. But if you're honoring their memory, but you also, that's what you wanted to do anyway, and that's still your goal, go for it. But if it's not your first priority, or if it's not your first choice, but you still are doing it because you feel like you owe it to them, that's not the right reason to follow that same path. And it's okay to change your goals. It's okay to change your dreams, and it's okay to change your life. It's okay to sell your house when maybe you thought you were going to grow old and die together with your spouse in that house and live there forever. And then your spouse died and you're looking around and maybe all these memories are coming to you and it's too big for you to take care of by yourself, or, it's more yard work than you wanted to handle, and maybe it's too expensive, or whatever the things might be. But you might have imagined yourself living in that house and, for the rest of your life. But that's okay if those plans change as a result of you being widowed. Like, if you're looking around and thinking, this is really too much house for me, and it's just too much for me to keep up with, and it's too expensive, but this was our house that we said we were going to, grow old and die together in, but I promised this, but all my dreams had this house in it, and all those things. It's okay if those plans change. It's okay if those dreams change, and you probably will feel guilty from some of that. But feeling guilty about something is not an entire reason not to do it. Okay, just know that that's part of the healing process and it's a normal part. But just because you feel guilt over it doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do. It just means it's a complicated process. Grief is so complicated. But if you're waiting for somebody to tell you that it's okay, or kind of give you permission, if you want to call it that, to make a major change in your life goals, several years after you've been widowed, it is okay. It's totally okay. Even if it's something that you never would have done if you had stayed married and your husband had been alive or your wife had been alive, and there might be some things that like you never would have done as a married couple, but now that you're by yourself, you have these goals or these dreams or these things, and you're going to go ahead and do it, and that's okay. It's okay because now you're living your life for yourself. You're carrying the memory of your spouse with you, but the decisions you're making is for you, because you're the person that's living this life. And so you have to make those decisions that are best for you. Sometimes I think about how my house was set up. My house was set up in a traditional family type style. And then when Dewey died, we built a house, and it was one of his wishes. He told me that, take the life insurance money and build a house for my babies, and put them in a nice house, something he could never do for us, that he always wanted to do for us. He was never financially able to do while he was alive. And so I did. I built the house exactly like the way we needed it to be, with a mom and 4 kids. And actually at that time it turned into a mom and 4 kids and a son-in-law and a grandbaby on the way. And so we moved in, and I picked all the furniture myself, and I set up the house the way that I wanted to set it up, the way that it worked best for me, which means there was no TV in the living room because we never sat in the living room and watched TV. It was just a fireplace and some couches. I had a whole upstairs room that I set aside for my sewing area and my crafting area, and I probably would never have done that. I probably would have done, who knows how I would have set it up. Like, I don't even know if I would have built that same house if it had been built for a family with 2 parents and the kids and all those things, and thinking about what we were going to do down the road and how much house we were going to need when the kids moved out and things like that. So my life changed a lot, and I made some decisions that, I probably would not have made the same way if I had been making those decisions as a part of a married couple. Same thing now. I live in a different house now with a new spouse. He doesn't feel new anymore. It's been over 5 years, but, and he's also widowed. But I think about the way we have our house set up now, and I think, okay, so, if it was just me here, I probably would not have set up the furniture the same way. But, that's neither here nor there. But, the decisions you make in your life are based on making those as a couple and what your couple goals are, and then your life as a person, a single person or a widowed person or a solo person, however you want to refer to yourself. And you have to make those decisions, and it's okay to change paths for your life if that's what you need to do or want to do. It's also hard to try to heal and move forward without feeling guilty about leaving your past behind. And so I think a lot of people have struggled to move forward because they feel like they're dishonoring their memory of their spouse. And so it's, they kind of get stuck in the grief because they feel too guilty to leave it behind. And leaving it behind, moving forward to them means leaving it behind. And it's hard to find that balance. And I totally get that. Especially over time, you start thinking, well, I'm ready to move forward, but what are people going to say? And, what about the memory of my husband? Am I dishonoring his legacy or his memory? So those are things that you have to do, you kind of have to wrestle with in your heart and in your mind as you're moving forward. And that's a hard balance to strike. The challenges of friendships and social circles. So that evolves over time for sure. And that starts almost immediately. A lot of people deal with the struggle of, maybe you have a large friend group and it's a bunch of couples and you guys did stuff together and went out to eat and, went to parties or went out and dancing or, went on cruises, whatever it is that you do together. And then suddenly, it's just you and then all your married couple friends. And so it's kind of hard to find your place in that social circle anymore because they feel awkward they feel like they need to invite you. And then when you come, it's kind of like you're the fifth wheel or the third wheel or the seventh wheel or however it goes. And eventually it's kind of like the awkwardness takes over and time goes by and you just they stop inviting you. And then you have all these single people that you know that are like, well, why is she coming over here trying to be friends with us now? And it's this awkward trying to insert yourself into like a new group of single people who aren't married. And you might not know anybody in your age range, that's in your situation. Like I was 43. I can't really remember. I think I was 43 when I was widowed. And I didn't know anybody in my age group with young kids still at home that was widowed in my immediate area. Like I didn't have anybody I could hang out with that shared my experience and that knew what the hell I was going through. I had plenty of friends, but like no widowed friends. So there was nobody like in my real circle that I could really relate to that was going through the same thing that I was. And so it was hard for me to figure out how to fit in there as well. Now I've already covered a lot of that. So and like I said, it is hard because sometimes you do have to find a new group of friends, and sometimes you move, and sometimes the people that you knew, sometimes it's family. It's in-laws are hard to deal with after you lose your spouse, because it's kind of like, well, are you still their family? I mean, you kind of are, but you're kind of not. And it's weird because you were married to their son or their daughter. And so you are an extended part of their family, but at the same time, you're kind of not. And then sometimes family members can take their anger and their pain out on the person who was closest to their child or their brother or sister or whatever. And a lot of times widows and widowers get treated unfairly, almost as if we get blamed for the death of our spouse. Even if it was health related or something, they might kind of blame us and like, why'd you feed him that food? And why'd you let him do that stupid stuff? And why'd you let him go on that motorcycle? And why'd you let him live that risky lifestyle? And why did why did y'all do such and such and so and so? Like whatever the events that led to your spouse's death, I'm sure there are some times, even if they can't help it, that they look and they wonder, could you have done anything differently? And you might ask yourself those same things. And I encourage you not to, or discourage you from doing that, because you can what if yourself to death and really get yourself into like a mental spiral that takes you to a bad place. So, but sometimes that's harder for family members not to bring that to the surface and to try to hold down that animosity. So just a lot of changing in dynamics between friends and family after you lose your spouse and become widowed. It's hard to think about dating, again. It's hard for people to even consider that they might be ready. When you first start thinking that you might be ready to start dating again, or to try to find someone, or even to just start socializing in a way like that, the first thing you feel is some guilt, because you can consider yourself a married person, and so it's hard to make that mental shift. And then you got to deal with what other people are going to think and how they're going to say. Like, they're either going to judge you for taking too long, they're either going to judge you for, they think, moving too fast, or they're going to judge you for deciding not to do it at all. And those are three different, very acceptable ways of moving forward in your grief. Moving forward quickly, some people just do. Moving forward way later and just waiting for a while, some people do that too. And some people just say that they're just done. Like, I had the love of my life, and the bar is raised so high that no man could ever meet it anyway. And so I'm not even going to try. And so I'm just going to learn how to enjoy life by myself. And that's totally okay too, whatever it is that you decide. But it's still a hard transition to make regardless. And also, dating is just totally different now than it was back when we were first meeting our spouses. And so it's, the dating world is just different, right? That's all I have to say about that. Even now, like, I haven't been dating in a while because I've been married for 5 years, but when I re-entered the dating pool, it was like these dating apps and these weird people, and people are, a lot of people are strange. And so this is hard. It was just a hard, it was a hard thing to do. Let's just put it that way. And so, there also could be some financial issues, and there's been financial issues for me, even though, I think about people who were left with no life insurance and no benefits from their spouse because, maybe that happened at such a young age. You didn't really think about that or prepare for that. Hold on. I had to turn my heater off. It was burning me up. But, my husband left me with a life insurance policy, and it was basically what saved me from, going bankrupt and being financially destitute in the first year or so after he died. But it wasn't enough for me to retire and be a stay-at-home mom and take care of my kids the way I wanted to. I still had to work, still had to pay the bills. And so, it was a challenge. And then I got remarried, and then COVID hit right after we got married. And so we had 6 family members move in with us almost a few months after we got married because, his son lost his job and he had a wife and 4 kids and, and so they had no place to go. And so we were housing them, and his job was practically going away. I mean, he has a retail business, and so retail just almost went away during COVID. So, his business went down to like a third of what it was when we first got together. And so we were basically scraping by. I was working, he was working, but he wasn't making what he had been making, and teachers don't make jack anyway. And so together, suddenly we were like struggling to make ends meet. And then, we buy this house, and we seem to be okay for a while. And then we're hit with some tax stuff from like way back before we even knew each other. And so like some tax stuff came and basically ripped the rug out from under us, and we've had to do some adjustments. And so now we're back to trying to figure out how to pay the bills from month to month. We're not like about to be homeless. It's not like we can't make our bills. It's just, we're just not living the kind of life that we would like to live at the age that we are for the amount of time and work that we've put in towards our careers. Like we should be thinking about retiring and looking at being comfortable and, just kind of coasting. And we're still doing the daily grind and trying to make things work from day to day. The hustle, if you want to call it that. And I feel like I'm too old for the dang hustle at this point. So, anyway, but there's just a lot of adjustments, and and here comes the doggy dog. Hey, she got a haircut. You want to see her new hair? Okay. Yes, okay. Yeah. Who is that? Who's that pretty girl on the screen? Yep, she got a haircut. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right, I'm recording, so, all right, time to get down.
Hi, YouTube.
The child is up. All right. Go. All right. Huh? Schoolwork?
I'm going to do it, yeah, but it's going to be language arts, so I'm going to have to write an essay and stuff.
Okay.
Can I use your laptop for school?
No. What's wrong with your laptop?
I don't know where the charger is.
Okay. We'll just use that one, and we'll find the charger today. All right. All righty. So, parenting. We were just talking about that, right? We were talking about parenting. I still have a child at home. So, she is 14, about to be 15, about to be getting her learner's license, and going to be teaching her how to drive, and she's going to want to be getting a job and saving up for a car. And, I feel like I'm too old for this too. But here we are. And so anyway, blending families has been a little bit of a challenge, and, and it is what it is. And that has nothing to do with being widowed. That just has to do with if I was divorced and had remarried, blending families is also an issue. So, it is what it is. If you decide to move forward and you've got kids, you come as a package deal. And if you decide to marry somebody who's got kids, they come as a package deal. And you got to figure out how to fit those two packages sometimes into one container. And that's a little bit of a challenge. It has been, and it still is sometimes. And again, it's also difficult to keep the memory of your spouse alive without being stuck in that moment, without being stuck in those memories and stuck in that grief. And, like I said, finding that balance is also a challenge. So let me get my coffee. It's hot. So, and the last thing I wanted to talk about is just embracing life as you move forward. And again, it is hard because you're living this life that you never asked for. You're living this life that you did not want to have to live, but you're having to do it anyway. And now you're being told to find joy in it because you know that that's what's good for you. But it's hard to find joy in a life that you did not choose. It's hard to find joy in a life that that it has grief in it every day. Like every day you wake up, you never forget that you're widowed. Like it might not be every single thing you think about every single moment of the day, but I would venture to say there's probably not a day that goes by. I doubt there's any days that have gone by in the last 7.5 years that I haven't remembered and like actively thought about the fact that I'm widowed. Even if I'm remarried, I'm still dealing with the widowed issues, right? My kid's dad is still dead. And so they are still dealing with the loss of their dad and always will. I'm still their only parent left. And so, that will never change. And so those are some issues that, I'm having to try to embrace, even though I am remarried and I do have support from my husband. So I'm not trying to discount any of that. But there's still a difference between stepdad and dad. And so, and it is really hard, to raise a child that is not biologically your own, that came to you at a later age in life, who had just lost her dad. So Dallas was 7 when I met JP, and she was 7 or 8. I can't really remember, but she was 8, I believe. Wait, hold on. She was 7 when her dad died. She's 14 now, so she was 9. Sorry, she was 9 when we remarried, and she's 14 now. So, if you had a 14-year-old or you have one, you know how it is at 14. You know how parenting is at 14. And she's my 4th child. So I've had 3 of them already go through age 14. And age 15, I think, is even worse. And it's coming. So, it's like I said, there has to be discipline in the house. There has to be the ability for the man of the house to be able to set rules, and for the parents of the house to be able to set boundaries and rules and expectations and consequences for behaviors. But, they just can't come about in the same way when it comes from a step parent. It's just a hard dynamic to navigate. If you've had a step parent, you know what I'm talking about. If you are a step parent, you know what I'm talking about. So, it just comes along with the territory. So, basically, I'm just trying to navigate life, and incorporate my widowed situation, my grief, my feelings and my memories, and Dewey's legacy, and raising our children that we had together, and just, juggling all the things. And as I was going to say for this week, like this week has been really tough for me. I'm having parenting issues, and I don't want to get into details because first of all, it's not relevant. And second of all, it's disrespectful to them to air their dirty laundry out onto it's their life too, not just mine. But, my oldest, and I've shared a little bit about this, but my oldest has, had no contact with any of us for quite some time, and except for the youngest one. And so, unfortunately, I've had to make a tough decision to cut ties, to block ties between them because of, just issues, and it being an avenue. Like if you want no contact from the family, you got to have no contact from the family. You don't get to you don't get to insert, a family member and manipulate them into gaining intel and planting a mole, in the house just to find out what's going on. If you don't want to have anything to do with the family, then you don't have anything to do with the family. I'm just saying. So it's been over a year since I've had any contact with my oldest daughter which also means I haven't had any contact with my grandson, unfortunately. And suddenly there was some contact just out of the blue in the last couple days. That was like, I don't know why. Like, I don't know what prompted it. I don't know what was the trigger, but it was not friendly contact, and it was not, hey, how are you doing? I haven't talked to you in a while. Maybe we can talk. It was not anything towards trying to make amends or trying to find a way that we can mend fences or any of that. It was a total attack. It was a total, it was just like I said, a punch in the gut. And it was, I don't know what prompted it. Like, I don't know I really don't know. I can't even speculate because it wasn't explained. It was just an attack. And so, I guess no contact means no contact from me, but I guess that means she can still contact me if she wants to. I don't necessarily agree with that, and I refuse to block her because I still love her, and she's my child no matter what. No matter how many bad things she says to me or, how awful it can get, if she needed me in some kind of dire situation and she needed to contact me, I don't want her to be blocked. And if she's in the hospital somewhere in a car wreck or, or something bad happens and she calls me and says, hey, I need you, all the other bad stuff falls away. Mom is always mom. And so as much as I feel like I should just cut all ties and block so that there's no more chance of me being like attacked emotionally, I can't, because then she would have absolutely no way of contacting anyone in the family in case she needed something. And so I'm going to keep that avenue open, even though it means opening up myself to being bashed whenever she feels like it. And so it's just really hit me kind of hard. And the reason why it hit me hard and the way that I want to tie this together with the grief is that I just had I had a hard time falling asleep last night because I was thinking about how different my kids' lives would have been if I was still raising them with their dad. So, because sometimes kids just need, a kick in the ass, like a harsh, tough love from daddy. And they can't get it from my husband because, he has to tread lightly. He's their stepdad. And so he can be disappointed in them. He can talk to them. He can love them. He can support them. He can help them. He can discipline them to an extent with me. But like, he can't just lay into them and give them like the stern talking to or yell at them or anything like that, because they're just going to shut down and be like, well, you're not my dad. And so who do you think you are? But sometimes kids just need to be like, given when you have a mom and a dad, a lot of times, like, the dad is the disciplinarian and the mom is the one who's like, the kids run to and say, Daddy was mean to me, and then mom's like, come here, tell me what happened. And then you have a little talk about it. You have a come to Jesus meeting with your kid. And so I was the mama duck, I was the one that they ran to and said, Daddy was mean to me when he got them in trouble. But, when they did something wrong, it was Daddy that they were scared, being mad at them. And so they don't have that anymore. And so I sometimes wonder, like, sometimes I think my kids just need like some daddy love, and I can't give it to them, and he's not here to give it to them. And so I'm getting run all over sometimes because I'm the mom and I'm the pushover and I'm the, it's tough love is tough, especially on the parents. And it's hard to be, it's hard to be harsh with them because in the back of my mind, I keep thinking, well, hasn't life, handed them enough lemons? Like, hasn't life been crappy enough for them? They lost their dad. They're having to deal with all of that. They didn't ask for this life either. And so, haven't they been hit hard enough? And to lay into them sometimes feels like I'm just kicking them while they're down. So it's been a hard balance for me to strike as a parent, because I have to be able to parent my kids. Like my 3 are grown. They're out of the house. They still need mom, but, I can't discipline them. But the one that's still at home is about to go through some of the toughest years of her life, because teenage years are just tough. I'm like, I'm worried a little bit, because it's been really hard for me to parent these kids, as they're grieving, and I'm grieving too. And like I said, now we have a blended family, and Dallas is here by herself. She grew up with all of her siblings. She grew up as the baby of the family, and basically having like all these parent figures or these older sibling figures around. And she still has them close by, but she doesn't have them in the house, and so she's lonely. It's just her and me. But she doesn't have her siblings around. And she's a kid. She's going to try some things, and she's going to push the boundaries. And so, and I'm older. I'm a lot older parent than I was when my firstborn was 14. And so when I was barely in my 40s, barely 40, and now I'm well into my 50s, and I'm tired and I'm old. And so, and I've been parenting for 28 years, and I'm tired. So, and I'm strapping in my seatbelt for the next 4 years or so to just get her through high school, get her into college or whatever, or trade school or career path, or training or whatever it is that she decides to do for herself. But she's, I gotta get her there safely, and without getting herself into like big trouble. Kids are gonna find trouble, but I don't want her to get into drugs. I don't want her to get pregnant. And so pretty much just about all the other things we can handle and get past, right? And so we're just wanting to deal with those things. So anyway, this kind of went all around the world, but just some things about how your life can morph and change and evolve over the long term of being widowed, because it's going to always bring challenges. Even now, 8 years later almost, the fact that my kids don't have a dad in their life is daily affecting how I parent them, how they're growing up, how they're dealing with the world. Like, it's still affecting us big time. And so, even though I'm not like feeling the acute grief in my heart every single day like I was before, there's still that secondary loss of how my life is so different now, that he's not in their life, and how I'm still struggling to parent my kid, my baby, without her dad in her life. And so it's still a challenge every single day, and I'm still trying to handle it. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you're wondering where all the videos are, the last several months of videos have been lives. And so if you're looking on the channel and you're not seeing videos for a while, click on that tab that says live or lives, and that's where you'll see all the latest videos. I got tons of them. I've been doing them almost weekly, but since they've been live, they're posted as recorded afterwards. So they're on the channel, but they're under a different tab. So you might not be seeing them if you come to the YouTube channel. So check out the live tabs and go catch up on some of the things that we've discussed in the last time. And so thanks for coming to Lunch with Leo, even though it's a recorded Lunch with Leo. Maybe we'll see me next week. If you don't, I will try to pop in as much as possible when I have good topics to talk about, but I don't want it to start getting stale and boring. And so I might just do it 1 or 2 times a month rather than every single week, and just see how that goes. So thank you so much. I love you all. Thank you for all of your support over the last several years. I'm not going anywhere. I just might be taking a back seat for a little while, waiting for the bigger topics to come, and give me a little time to prep on those. So anyway, thank you so much for your support. Subscribe. I will still be adding, things to the channel. So the channel is not going away. So go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell. So that way, when I do have a video, you will know that it's out and you won't miss it, and you'll be the first one to be able to see it. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Bye.